Hey, everybody, what's up? Welcome in to Best on the Board presented by BetMGM here at the Athletic. Michael Beller with you to kick off what is going to be one hell of a football week ahead of us. Of course, it all starts tonight, Monday night, college football playoff championship game, Georgia and Alabama. Georgia and Alabama, too. First game was definitely not a disappointment. This one promises to be another great one. We're going to start there. We're also going to take a look ahead to the wild card round in the NFL, which comes at us beginning on Saturday, spread across 3 days. So bookended this week with some great football action. Joining me to talk about the college football playoff championship, we have Ari Wasserman. Ari, what is going on? Big day tonight, my friend. And you were on this Georgia team quite a while ago.
I always love watching the national championship, guys, but I'm always sad because it means the season's over. So, I'm kind of like in a weird mood where it's just like I don't have college football now for like 8 more months, which means I'll probably be more financially stable. But it's always a tough thing to let it go because it comes and goes so fast. But I'm excited. I'm excited to hopefully see a good game on Monday night.
Yeah, I'm excited for that too. And I mean, you've got to be pretty excited about some of those Georgia futures. You have some. I'm not misremembering that, right? You've got some Georgia futures in your pocket.
Yeah, I'm sitting here right now, wondering how I'm going to play this tonight because I haven't hedged yet. But I played Georgia. I believe it was 5-1 before the year started, and Alabama's getting plus money tonight, so I've got a pretty good hedge opportunity here. I don't know if I'm going to be a wuss or not, though, and just let it ride. So we'll see how this goes because I'm very curious to know what Dan has on this game, and if he likes the over, then I'm hedging. So, and he always likes the over in these games. So
always liking the over. Dan Santaramita with us as well, and Dan, yeah, I mean this is a game that I do think is going to live up to the billing that we're all expecting for it. What about 9 hours from now?
Yeah, I'm excited just because I think the coaching side of this game is what's going to be the most interesting in terms of the adjustments of what we saw the first time versus what we'll see this time. So I can't wait to see it unfold. I think it'll be more competitive than the last one, but who knows what we'll see with these kind of games. There's always a surprise, it seems like.
All right, guys. Well, we've been doing this for months together. We've been doing it weekly for 4.5 months. This is the last time we will talk about college football on this show for, as Ari said, about 8 months. So let's get into it here, you guys. Georgia, as we wake up here on Monday morning, Georgia is 2.5-point favorites. This has been moving basically between 2.5 and 3, and it's been going back and forth. And it's been Georgia as the favorite here all 9 days long. 2.5-point favorites today on Monday morning. 52.5 is the total on this game. So before we get into any of what you're actually picking, what you want to do with this game from a betting perspective, let's just talk about the game itself. Ari, where do you think this game is ultimately decided? How are you sizing up these two teams against one another, knowing what we already know about them and the first matchup that they had against one another in the SEC championship game?
At the risk of sounding cliche, guys, one team has a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback and the other team has a walk-on, former walk-on starting. And I know that Stetson Bennett has played very well in spots this year. And, Georgia fans have become accustomed to liking him. But if you go back and you look at the last 5 national championship winners, all of them are starting NFL quarterbacks right now. And Alabama, who benched Jalen Hurts for Tua at halftime a few years ago, both of those guys are NFL starters now. So it just kind of goes to show you that quarterback play is such a important piece of the puzzle when it comes to this thing. So, to me, if Georgia's going to win this game and, pick them before the season started to win it all, and I would be such a coward to just
you would
get to the doorstep.
I was getting ready to call you a coward.
Yeah, get to the doorstep and pick against them. I do think that it's really hard to beat the same team twice, despite what Utah did to Oregon. I hope for Georgia's sake that their coaching staff was able to come up with some defensive, alterations to put them in a position to hold Alabama's offense in check. I think that Georgia probably has to score 27 to 30 points in this game to win, probably 31 to 34 to cover. I mean, I don't know. And I think they have that in them. But if Alabama starts scoring into the mid-30s or whatever, Georgia's going to lose. So I think Georgia's defense, which has carried them all year and has made average teams look completely hopeless, should, if they want to win a national championship, they got to keep Alabama from looking like unstoppable. And I covered the Cincinnati-Alabama game. I've watched Alabama all year. The funniest thing about this game, guys, is that this is like the second worst or the worst Alabama team of the playoff era. Like, I don't think people have put that together yet. Last year, they had 6 first-round draft picks. They've had ups and downs. Like, if you look at their regular season, they haven't always been the Alabama that we've come to know and love. And the genius of Nick Saban is that in a quote-unquote down year with a down team, they're still playing for a national championship. So that just kind of goes to show you how great of a coach he is. That said, Georgia is never going to have a better yellow brick road to a national championship than they do this year. Their team is built to win one, outside of, unfortunately, the quarterback position. And I feel like if they can't get it done tonight, that, you know, even though they're going to be well assembled into the future with talented rosters, that I don't think it's ever going to be an easier path. So to me, it just can Georgia's defense be 80% as good as it looked against some of the teams that had no chance to beat them?
Dan, same question to you. What do you, when you're breaking this down, what's the first thing that you're thinking about when you're trying to determine who wins this game and where you want to start to be placing your money?
Well, I think Ari said it perfectly with the points Georgia has to score to win, which is why I like the over. I think this should be a close game. I don't think there's a big advantage in taking a side against the spread, because I think you're pretty much looking at a one-score game, and then game state's going to dictate who wins and maybe a turnover or something. I don't think there's a big edge in that. But I do think, like Ari said, if Georgia has to score high 20s, 30s to win, right? They're not going to totally shut Alabama down like they've done to so many other teams. And if it gets higher scoring than that, that favors Alabama. But I do think, look, the number's 52.5. If Alabama and Georgia are playing 30-20 down the stretch, you're within a score late. I think that's pretty much what we're looking at, and I think there's a chance it goes way over again. But I'm gonna steal some notes from our Georgia beat writer Seth Emerson, who had something after the SC title game. And I thought these stats were really telling. He did a rewatch of the game and counted through Georgia's pass rush against Bryce Young. So they had 48 dropbacks, 22 of which Georgia only rushed 4. And almost all of Alabama's big plays came out of those, he said. There were 12 5- or 6-man rushes for Georgia, and those were more effective. The thing that was key was Alabama decided to, because everyone was talking about Alabama's offensive line, right? And how effective they were in that first game. But they also avoided pass pressure and 14 quick hitters, and Bryce Young was 12 of 14 for 100 yards on those plays. So, and he threw for 297 yards and 3 touchdowns when they rushed 4 or fewer, versus 1 of 11 for 24 yards when Georgia rushed 5 or more. So there's your easy adjustment for Kirby Smart and Georgia. Be like, hey, we have to bring pressure. Alabama's going to do the quick hitters, and they're going to get some plays off of that. But you have to bring pressure because you got burned not doing it too often the first time. So that's where I think Georgia's defense could be like, all right, we have to trust our ability to get some pressure and bother him because we tried doing it normal and it didn't work.
Ari, you say you have to be a coward to go against your preseason pick, and so you're sticking with Georgia minus 2.5. What's the break-even point for what I could tell you about the defense in advance? Like, if I told you I am coming back to you from the future, I just arrived here, from 12 hours from now, and I can tell you that Georgia holds Alabama to 27 points. Would you sign up for that? Or would you say, no, I'll just roll the dice and see what they can actually do?
This would be a good statistic because I don't know it off the top of my head. But if you went back and you looked at all the playoff games that were won in the past 4 years as the game has changed, I don't know that many of them were won by scoring 23 points. Like, I think most teams that have advanced or won a national championship have done so by scoring into the 30s or 40s. So if you told me that Georgia was able to hold Alabama to 27 points, I would like that for them. And if you put Georgia at 30 there, that's right hovering around the over-under total, depending on where you want to put it. So I think that all makes sense. Now, here's the thing that we have to say, and I have to say, I said it on the Andy Staples show, and I'll say it here. At a certain point, you're just a moron to bet against Nick Saban. And
Sure.
I think that we could look at all these stats and all these circumstantial evidence pieces to say, well, here's why this is going to happen. And sometimes the answer is just Nick Saban's getting points and plus money right now. So it's if I were betting the game myself, I think I might take plus money just because the value. of what that is, and that doesn't happen very often. And I do think it's interesting that I think 60 to 70% of the action is on Alabama. In what the spread has moved back and forth between a half point, which I think could be
moving half a point. Yeah,
I am in a different situation than just betting it straight up because I have a decision about whether or not I'm going to hedge a money line play. But I also feel like staying true to what I thought the season was going to do in the future, in the beginning of the year, that Georgia is well equipped to finally beat an Alabama team that was depleted for Alabama standards when it came to top end talent after what they lost in the NFL draft last year. And Georgia's team is stacked from top to bottom with elite level talent. George Pickens is healthy. They have the benefit of the doubt of having some of those adjustment pieces to their advantage. They have film. And I always feel like if you win the first matchup, you've got less to change and less to adjust to than the team that lost, which is why it's so hard to win twice. So I'm going to play Georgia, and I think I might not hedge just because I like watching the game and not being a coward. But at the same time too, like if you're like sitting here and saying Ari's a moron, he's betting against Nick Saban. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, I get it. Yeah, I get it. So for what it's worth, in the CFP era, which goes back to 2015, we've had one champion score fewer than 35 points in the championship game, and it was this matchup in 2018 when Georgia won 26, or when Alabama won, 26-23 in overtime. And in most of those games, in most of those matchups, they needed all those points. There are some that were, the LSU Clemson, go back all the way to the very first one, Ohio State and Oregon. Those were some where they scored more than they needed, but in general, we have seen high-scoring championship games since we've been in the CFP era. So maybe that does end up playing into.
And here's the thing, guys: like Georgia was a top 25 team nationally in yards per game this year.
Yeah,
and like I don't know how much. Like, see, the thing that I have a hard time with statistics is in the NFL, and Beller will understand this. Obviously, the teams don't have such talent gaps. The best teams and the worst teams are much closer than the best teams and the worst teams in the college football. So, like, if Georgia rolls over, I don't know, Vanderbilt by scoring 62 points in a 62-0 game, that changes the stats a little bit. So, like, when I look at stats in college football, I'm not as enamored with them as I am if I'm betting the NFL because you can totally stack them with overmatched opponents.
The Jaguars of college football do not beat the Colts of college football the way that we saw yesterday.
Yes, and it was an ass kicking.
Fell
victim to the live genie on that one, boys.
That's just a perfect live bet, though, right? I mean,
I got plus money on the Colts beating the Jaguars in the beginning of the third quarter. So I thought, and don't the Jaguars still have the first pick in the draft too? I think I saw. So that was a perfect
because of the Lions win over the Packers.
Yeah, God, the Lions. They can't even lose when they're supposed to.
The pluckiest 3-win team in NFL history, that's for sure.
But the thing I'll say, guys, and if you want to take stats into account, go ahead. Georgia's the top 10 team nationally in scoring offense. So I think they averaged 39.1 points per game this year. And, again, that's not against Alabama's defense, but they should be able to score 30 points. I mean, they've got a great running game. Their receivers are talented. Yep. Their offensive line is top notch with, draft picks all over the place. Like they should be able to score 30, right? And Alabama's just not as good as people think they are. I think it's a helmet game. And I know they already beat Georgia, and I sound like a hypocrite. But Alabama is not last year's Alabama.
Would Ohio State beat these teams?
Would Ohio State beat these two? I would say no on that one, boys. I think last year's Ohio State team would beat both these teams.
The thing I'll say for Georgia's offense is the first game we saw, right? Georgia's offense gets the benefit of field position and being able to control the clock because their defense is usually just smothering the opposition. So they're getting favorable field position and getting the clock and tired defenses and all that. And we saw in the first Alabama game, they had none of those things. Once Alabama's offense started rolling, it felt like Georgia's offense had to do all the work and just was not able to with Bennett at quarterback, right? So I think that's the one thing where, they have a good offense. I think the numbers are inflated by their defense setting them up all the time. And they didn't have that the first time. So if the defense doesn't get stops, then maybe that's asking too much of their offense to do it on their own.
All right, guys, last word on this. One play and one play only. If you're making one play tonight, what is it? What do you got for us, Dan?
The over. It worked so well last time. I can't fight it again.
Yeah. Ari, how about you?
I don't know. I'm playing Georgia. I just made up my mind. And again, I'm not laying points because I had the preseason plus odds to win the national title. And I think this is usually a pretty good opportunity for live. Like if Georgia gets up early and we get a plus 200 situation for Alabama, then I might, consider it then. But I think that the line not moving much is an indication of where things are at. I'm just going to fall into the trap of just like Alabama can't win the national title every year. And if they are way less deep than they were a year ago, and this is their down year, quote unquote down year, and Georgia's built for it, then I just think that eventually it's something different is going to have to happen. And I do think that the line lack of line movement is telling here. And, I can really get on board with some of the stats that Dan came up with the rush. And, Jordan Davis isn't standing in the middle of the game with his hands on his hips, like sucking air, like maybe they have a shot to do something. And, I do think that eventually I'm going to do something live in this game one way or the other. But I'm gonna stick with Georgia. That was my play from the beginning of the year. Of course, I have to play Alabama, but I'm going to stay Georgia here.
It should be a hell of a game tonight, you guys. Something we've been building toward. It's felt like these have been the two best teams all season long, with Ohio State mixing in there also. But this is a game we've been building toward for the college
and
football
Wisconsin
playoff championship. And, well, of course, but listen, we got a lot of Wisconsin basketball that we're going to get on this show over the next couple of months, so we don't need to shoehorn in anything with Graham Mertz in this episode. But it's an exciting game. It's a great matchup. It's one we're very excited about. It's a great way to put an exclamation point on this college football season. Georgia and Alabama getting together for the college football playoff championship. Guys, I'm sad to say that this is the last time we'll do this together, at least in college football
middle of the summer funny MGM bets, right? They'll put out their way too early lines, like it'll be we'll do that. We'll do some futures next year.
We'll get some futures nice and early. We'll get some, I don't know, maybe we'll get some spring game sort of stuff. It'll be fun. We'll
Do they have spring game lines? I don't think they have spring game.
No,
do they?
No.
That'd be hilarious, though. I would play them. Sitting there looking at the rosters, like which 5-star freshmen's on what team,
But yeah, we'll definitely do it. But this has been an incredibly fun season with you guys. So thank you for all you've brought to the show this year.
No problem.
This is fun.
Let's go.
Do you have our records, Beller?
I don't have them handy, but I will.
I don't know how bad we were.
I will. Yeah, it's holidays and the paternity leave. Like I don't have them all handy in the spreadsheet the way that I typically do. But
my kid messed up everything, didn't they?
I mean, our records are so far like we have so many. Like our number of picks are so completely different because of fatherhood for
I mean, I went over 500 in the year-long pool that we did, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you had the best record of our full on the
picks.
website. Yeah.
And those games were the hardest games to pick, so I'm going to cling to that as over 500 picking primetime games for an entire college football season is like I might tattoo that on my back somewhere.
Yeah,
like forced picks. Yeah.
It's you and James Holtzhauer carrying the athletic mantle.
Hey, one day I'd like to talk to that guy about what his system is, though.
Yeah.
I bet you that guy is a crazy line movement live better person, isn't he? Like
I don't know.
He has to
it's
be
an offline chat, I think, though.
Like, what does a professional sports gambler mean? It means like buying lines like the stock market, and then the outcomes of the games don't even matter.
Yes, I mean he's also really smart. He's got all the Jeopardy money.
I saw the Jeopardy. Jeopardy. Okay, I'll shut up now.
He's got the Jeopardy money. You can't forget about that. And now he's got that other. He's doing very well, and he's very smart. But we should get a little offline chat between you guys going. That would be great. But this has been awesome. This has been great. Georgia, Alabama, going to be a great way to end things here for us on Best on the Board and for this college football season. Ari Wasserman, Dan Santaramita. It's been fun, guys. Good luck tonight. We'll talk to you soon. All right. NFL time coming up in just a second here. First, though, a word from our friends over at BetMGM. Right now, bet 10, win 150 plus a free 3-month subscription to The Athletic. Go to BetMGM.com. Use the code TheAthleticPod. Again, take advantage of this offer from the King of Sportsbooks right now. Bet 10 to win 150 plus a free 3-month subscription to The Athletic if you go to BetMGM.com and use the code TheAthleticPod. This is a new customer offer for BetMGM customers. Terms and conditions apply. All right, NFL time coming up at you right now. Andrew DeWitt joining me to talk through the entire wild card weekend, or I guess maybe more accurately, DeWitt, we're basically going to set the stage. We're going to make some early picks like we've done on this Monday episode all season long, but really we're just setting the stage because there's going to be a lot of NFL talk on this show all playoffs long. We're going to hit on the NFL every single episode. Every single time we come talking to you, we're going to be talking about that coming NFL weekend schedule. So we're going to get through this wild card slate, at least setting the stage, setting the foundation for what we think. How's it go, man? How you doing?
Oh, doing good. That was a fun week 18, wasn't it?
Oh my God.
I mean, usually it's a dud.
Awesome.
Like it's usually just, oh, we got this one game. There's like some positioning going on, but it was like every window had something crazy going on. The Jaguars, the NFC West coming down to the overtime game, which both those teams could have played for overtime or the tie too, and still got the result, by the way. And then you had, I mean, Sunday Night Football was just insane. I don't even know how to summarize that, but I just can't believe.
I don't think you can. I mean, it's just like with what was with the tie angle, with the analytics angle that was brought into it, and just like so many decisions having to be made, everything Justin Herbert did, all those throws Justin Herbert made. I mean, I feel like something that's being lost in the craziness of the game going to overtime and almost getting all the way through overtime is that everything is moot if the Chargers don't hit a 4th and 21 touchdown. Like that was ridiculous. After Herbert put that dime on Mike Williams on 3rd and 21, right?
Yeah,
and then just ridiculous.
He kept throwing to the near side of the field, like every single, like in the fourth quarter. Like I don't think he threw to the far side of the field based on the TV angle once. So I'm like, what are they doing? Like he literally was just throwing outside the numbers every single play, forcing the throws. Then it'd be 4th down. He's like, okay, I'll go across the field now, I guess, because I've stopped throwing Hail Marys to the outside the numbers. It's like outside the numbers are like one of the least effective throws that are out there. They'll like the analytics. I mean, let's not even go into analytics because that's just a whole different argument.
I do not want to have that discussion.
No, but it was just crazy. Like how 5 straight 4th downs, just and then
4th and 10s. We're not talking like they're handing it off to Austin Eckler on 4th and 2.
Right? Yeah, these were all. I think they were incomplete on like. I think he only completed 1 or 2 passes on that drive, like the 10-15 play drive to score the second touchdown. I think he only completed 1 or 2 passes on second or third down. I know he was like 0 for it on the first down. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. Just absolutely crazy way to end what was a crazy week and get us into the playoffs. We're just going to take these in chronological order. And again, we're talking through them. If we have plays that we already like already, we're throwing them out. But let's just talk through these matchups. I know the first game is one that we both have already played, and it is Bengals and Raiders. The Raiders get through, win that game, get this one against the Bengals. This is why the Raiders were always going to be playing this game straight. Like the Raiders were on, like, talk about the Brandon Staley timeout as much as you want to. You're wasting your breath. The Raiders were always going to kick that field goal because they had nothing to lose. I mean, what's the percentage of a field goal getting blocked and returned for a touchdown? Right? It's a fraction. It's a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. There's no actual risk there. And so they always wanted this matchup against the Bengals rather than the Chiefs matchup that they would have got had these two teams tied. So get that Brandon Staley timeout discussion out of here. I don't want to hear anything about it. What I do want to hear is why you also like the Bengals to cover this spread, because the last thing I did before turning my phone over, popping out a book, and getting in bed last night was put some money on the Bengals to cover what was 6 at the time and is now 6.5.
I just look at the Raiders, like at the end of their season, they beat the Colts, but Carson Wentz had COVID that week, and we've seen players drop off when they've had COVID the week before. They beat Nick Mullins on, I believe he was signed that week to the Browns, if I'm remembering this correctly.
He was signed that week. That is correct.
And then they beat Drew Lock.
They barely won that game against the Browns.
Yes. And then they beat Drew Lock when the Broncos weren't even trying to score, it seemed like. It was just, I mean, they put together a nice little win streak. And like, honestly, I thought the Raiders played pretty well last night. And as I mentioned, like Darren Waller came back last night, so that helps the offense, and he'll be a little bit more healthy, I think, on Saturday. I like the Bengals because it's a short week for the Raiders coming off an emotional win last night. And I don't think the Raiders expect to be in the playoffs, to be honest. Like, none of these players were making plans. They were all making plans for this weekend. They thought they were done 4 weeks ago. So I just think, and then look at the Bengals. Let's just throw out yesterday's game because they didn't even try to win that game. Joe Burrow had almost close to 1,000 yards passing the last 2 weeks that he tried in the last 2 weeks of the regular season. Big win against the Chiefs. I just like how the Bengals look, and I think Joe Burrow is like finally healthy because the ACL tear, and I think he tore a little bit more than his ACL, is that that takes time to get 100%. Like players can play through that injury, but when you talk to people, they don't get 100% until like close to 18 months after the injury. Yeah. So I think Joe Burrow is just now starting to get to that closer to 100%, and the Bengals are trusting him more to make those throws, and they're not running the ball. Like they used Joe Mixon so heavily in the first like half of the season, and now they're like leaning into the wide receiver core that they have and throwing the ball. So I just see the Bengals like rolling in this game. But
I do too. I mean, let's remember these teams played each other in the regular season. It was a 32-13 Bengals victory, and it was a little closer than that final score suggests. The Bengals scored like 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter of that game. So it was a little bit closer, but it was also a game that the Bengals had the Raiders basically at arm's length until they ultimately scored those like 14 or 16 points in the fourth quarter and ended up winning it pretty comfortably by that 32-13 score. But yeah, you don't want to put too much stock into just one result, one game in any NFL situation. But that Chiefs game that the Bengals won really did feel like the arrival of the Cincinnati Bengals, and that this is going to be a team that is a force to be reckoned with in the AFC for, the next, I don't know, at least 3 years. I'll just call it, right? So we don't want to say a decade or anything crazy like that in the NFL because things can turn very quickly. But this offense is going to be a force for a long time to come. And that really showed up in that Chiefs game. And I remember going into that game, they had just come off the ridiculous game the week before against the Ravens when Burrow threw for 500 whatever yards. And, it was a very impressive performance, but we were all cautioning a little bit like, look, these are not your dad's Ravens. This is not Ray Lewis and Ed Reed. And not only that, they are very banged up. Like even the watered down version of the Ravens that they are is even watered down beyond that because of all their secondary injuries. So you can't take away what the Bengals did offensively in that game, but they did it against a relatively soft opponent. And they come out and they get down in that game against the Chiefs. And then to come back the way that they did, and for Burrow and Jamar Chase to do what they did in that game, in that spot, in such a huge game, in a game where the Bengals are going to clinch the AFC North with a win, where the Chiefs had a lot to play for. That loss is why the Chiefs are playing this week and why they're not the team that's getting to take a week off and the Titans are. Like, there was a lot to play for the Chiefs in that game too. And the Bengals come out, they come back, they win that game. Like, that was the arrival of the Cincinnati Bengals as not just this cute, fun 2022 story, but as a legitimate threat in the AFC and as a team that we're going to be talking about as sort of penciling in as a playoff team at the start of the season, just as an assumption, and then we go from there. And so that's a very different narrative from what we're talking about with the Las Vegas Raiders going into the playoffs. I mean, let's not if we were talking about this as a regular season matchup, we'd also be talking about the fact that the Bengals just had basically a bye. Their Bengals are coming off a bye. The Raiders are coming off a Sunday night game where they had to play 70 minutes of football, expend everything that they had in them just to get into the playoffs. And now they got to turn around, go on the road, play this team that feels like it's clicking on all cylinders, is just flat out a better team. It's a team that beat them by 20 points in the regular season in Vegas. Like, everything about this says Bengals, Bengals, Bengals. And I don't want to lose sight of the fact that the Bengals are just the better team. This is my favorite bet of Wildcard Weekend. Hopefully we get off to a good start.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
It's one that should be. It's also great that this is like the spot that has been reserved for the Texans for so long, the Saturday afternoon game, and of course we get Bengals Raiders thrown in there. But I think we get off to a good start with the Bengals -6.5. Bills and Patriots meeting for the third time this season. Bills 4.5-point favorites in this one. 43.5 is the total. If I'm playing anything as we sit here, DeWitt, 6 days before this game takes place, 5 days before this game takes place, I'm leaning Bills. Right now, it feels like a bit of a stay away from me, though.
Yeah, I would actually lean the other way and go Patriots. I like the Patriots in their first matchup before the Wingate happened, and then the game was like you can't say you handicapped that game correctly because the wind just completely wrecked that game. But then I was surprised at how the Bills dominated in Foxborough against Bill Belichick. I mean, if you're the Bills, and you're a Bills fan, you're like, oh, this is the one team you didn't want to see. You didn't want to see Bill Belichick. You didn't want to see the Patriots. The familiarity there, like all these games are really close in the division. There's just so much history between these two teams. You've been beat up by this team for so long. Tom Brady dominated you for so long. Just like, this is supposed to be the year that the Bills make another good run, into the playoffs, at least get to the championship game. And now here comes Bill Belichick again. So if I'm leaning one way, I would lean towards the Patriots. I might throw an under bet and just see what the weather does, because there was a lot of wind in that game yesterday, which I think is why that Bills-Jets game was so close. Also because the Bills weren't exactly trying to blow them out of the water. They were just trying to get through that game. But I mean, I would lean towards the the Patriots in this game, just like from a betting point of view. Just take the points.
It's 4.5 is a little bit that bigger than I'm comfortable with, and that's why it's probably a stay away for me. I just think that the Bills are just a better team. Like there's nothing about the Patriots outside of Bill Belichick that suggests to me that they should be able to win this game. And so that's why I'm afraid of taking the Patriots too. And Bill Belichick's a big reason to suggest that they can win this game, but the Bills are better at basically every spot, and where the Patriots are better, they're either marginally better, or the spot where they're better is a marginal difference. Like, I just find it hard to believe that the Patriots are going to find a way to go into Buffalo, win this game without some sort of help like they had the first time when they did beat the Bills. This is just, the Bills are just a better team. They got a better quarterback. They've been in this spot now a couple of years in a row. They expect to be here. They expect to be a couple of rounds down the line from here. And I think that they are equipped to beat a team like the Patriots. We've seen it from them already this season. And so 4.5 is really what's scaring me away. I just don't quite trust the Bills to cover the 4.5. But I also don't think the Patriots can win this game. And usually when I take a dog, it's either a big line or I think they can actually win it outright. And so this falls in between that. That's why I can't take the Patriots. I actually think something I'll be watching is that, assuming that the weather is clear enough and we're not talking about some crazy wind in Buffalo this weekend, I kind of like the over, actually. Just because of the way that I expect the Bills to be able to play in a game where wind is not a factor.
Yeah, the way I see the Patriots winning this game is that they get turnovers from Josh Allen, who's thrown some interceptions recently. And then Mac Jones just plays like a conservative game where Damian Harris seems like he's a little bit healthier right now. I think they'll get Stevenson back. The Patriots are going to win by just pounding the ball and not letting Josh Allen get the ball, frustrating the Bills offense because they're going to be like, oh, we're just going to sit on the ball and it's just be a controlled clock management. But if the Bills get up early, then the Patriots are going to have to scramble, and then that's where Mac Jones will make mistakes. So
yeah, one of those games where if I were the Bills, I wouldn't just auto defer if I won the coin toss for that reason. Because if you get the moment you get out to a lead, and 7-0 early in the game is not like game over, but you could really put the Patriots on their heels if you get out to a lead early in this one. So we'll check back in later in the week. For now, it's a nothing for both of us. Not the case for the same Saturday afternoon game. Buccaneers and Eagles. Buccaneers are 8.5-point favorites in this game. The 2-7 matchup in the NFC. 49.5 is the total that we're looking at this one. For right now, it's a stay away for me, but you've got a couple of plays you like in this one.
Yeah, I like the Buccaneers. I bet it at like -7 yesterday. I think I got it at, or -7.5.
Yeah, I think 7.5 was the open.
Right. At BetMGM, I saw 7 a couple of places very briefly, like when the lines were first rolling out yesterday. And then, so I like that because the Buccaneers' strength is their run game, like topping the run with Vita Vea in the middle at nose tackle. He just takes up so much space. They just signed him to a long contract extension yesterday or the day before on Saturday. I really like the under 2 because I think the Buccaneers are just to control that line of scrimmage. And then Jalen Hurts and like the Eagles' run defense isn't going to be able to run the ball the same way that they have against these NFC East opponents recently. And then kind of going back to this trend that we've talked about all season long is we really wanted to just lean into the number 2 seed, whoever was the 7 seed out of the NFC, because I think that was like going to be the weakest team in the NFC. Whereas I feel like the rest of the teams at least bring something to the table. Even the 49ers, like with their defense and how they played yesterday, at least bring something to the table in that Cowboys game, and we can get to that next. But I mean, I really like the Buccaneers. I like Jalen Hurts, or I like Tom Brady. I like Gronk.
You like Tom Brady?
Hey, I think he'll be okay in some playoff games. I'm mildly concerned about the wide receiver situation because Tom Brady does not trust his wide receivers right now. But if Mike Evans stays healthy and Gronk stays healthy, he'll have it. Tom Brady has enough options. So I think basically this comes down to the Buccaneers defense frustrating the heck out of the Eagles run game, and there's nowhere to turn because I don't think Jalen Hurts can throw the ball like you would need to win the game. So that's where I'm kind of like just kind of loading on the Buccaneers that they're going to be able to win the game with their defense.
Buccaneers injuries, I don't think will cost them this week. I do think that is something we're concerned about next week, assuming they get past the Eagles.
Right.
I mean, they need Mike Evans healthy. They need Leonard Fournette healthy. Cyril Grayson. Like when you're worried about Cyril Grayson walking off the field the way that they were yesterday in that game against the Panthers, like that you are very, very thin at your skill positions. And so I think that that's something that, whether they're playing the Cowboys or whether they're playing someone else, if the 49ers upset the Cowboys, then we're concerned about that. I think for the reasons you laid out, I'm not too concerned about it. 8.5 is a big number, but the way that the Buccaneers offenses have been playing recently, I'm a little bit scared off of that. But it's one that, again, I would probably lean toward the favorite if I were going to make a play in this game. Really quick, you also like the under.
Right. Yeah. I just think that the Buccaneers defense to control the game and the Eagles aren't going to be able to put up a bunch of points. And then the Buccaneers, like we discovered, Buccaneers offense isn't like hitting on all cylinders right now. So I kind of I think once they get that lead, they'll just run the ball a little bit more and they're not going to be like trying to put up a bunch of points on the Eagles defense.
Yeah. Cowboys 49ers next game to talk about here. Cowboys 3.5-point favorites, 49.5 the total in this one. This is going to be the game of the weekend, I think. I really like the Cowboys. I wish they didn't draw the 49ers. I'd rather have the Cowboys. I'd rather have, if the Cowboys were 8.5-point favorites against the Eagles, I would be all over the Cowboys. I really like this team. I think the 49ers have a bit of an antidote for them. I still lean the Cowboys. It's not something I'm betting just yet, especially since it's sitting at 3.5. I don't feel any great need, any great urgency to get in while it's at 3.5. I do lean the Cowboys, and I think it's a ticket I'll be holding by time this game actually rolls around.
Yeah, I think I like the Cowboys at 12-1 to win the Super Bowl more than I do Cowboys.
Yeah, that's
minus 3.5.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I mean, I think the Cowboys are kind of going under the radar here a little bit in the NFC. But there's something stinky about this line. It went to +4, and then it kind of came down, and so the early money came in on the 49ers. So there's something
that was guaranteed that was going to happen.
Right, and it's on the key number right now, so it's a stay away from me for sure. But I think I like the Cowboys to win straight up in this game.
Mm-hmm. Maybe that's what you do with this game. Also, is play the Cowboys. I don't know, man. Incredibly impressive performance from the 49ers when the Rams got up 17-0. I was this game. This is over. The Saints are going to get into the playoffs, which is disgusting. Which is not, Sean Payton did a hell of a job with that team, but that's not a playoff team. That's my problem with the 7 seed. With the 7 seed existing, is that's not the Saints were not a playoff team, and they almost were a playoff team if the Rams are able to hold on to that 17-point lead against the Niners, and that 7-point lead they took late in the game after the Cooper Kupp touchdown in the fourth quarter. But that's what worries me about the 49ers, I suppose, is that they are liable to have those just ugly stretches. And they've gotten away with them, but you can't keep getting away with them. They got away with it against the Rams, just having a nothing of an offense for an entire half. And maybe that had something to do with Jimmy Garoppolo getting back in, with the thumb issue that he's been having. But still, you can't get away with these stretches, week after week against good teams. And so that's where I think the Cowboys ultimately win this game. Is that they're just a little bit more consistent offensively. Excuse me. What they do, they're a little bit better at than what the 49ers do. But maybe that's really where we come in with this game is forgetting about the number and thinking about a money line sort of play on the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think that's the safest way to go. It screams stinky line to me for whatever reason. I'm just going to stay away from this game for all those mentions. But like I said, Cowboys on a futures ticket, either to win the NFC or the Super Bowl, could be good value right now.
All right, can you make any sort of case for the Steelers at plus 12.5? I wouldn't be surprised if that's the sharper side of things, but who cares?
Yeah.
Because talk about not a playoff team. And again, what a ridiculous job by Mike Tomlin getting this team into the playoffs. But talk about not a playoff team. The Chargers are better than this team.
If I'm taking one side on this game, I would take the Steelers, but only because
Lamar Jackson and the Ravens are better than this team.
Right.
There are multiple AFC teams that are better than the Steelers. Yet here we are talking about the Steelers going into Kansas City this weekend.
But they're a well-coached team. This is
Very
Mike Tomlin's MO. This is Bill Belichick's MO. Andy Reid, he always gets. He has Patrick Mahomes now, so it's a little different conversation. But he always gets the best out of these teams. They sneak out wins somehow. Teams cough up wins to them left and right. Maybe the schedule helps them out a little bit, and they end up with 9 wins, and they sneak into the last playoff spot. I don't love any plays here in this game. I think the Chiefs will win, obviously. They did just play a couple weeks ago on December 26th. The Chiefs kind of rolled in that game. The Chiefs kind of showed all of their concerns in that Saturday game against the Broncos. Motivation didn't seem too high because I don't think they thought that the Titans were going to lose to the Texans, but they needed to win that game to wrap up the 2 seed, which is actually really important for next week. Because they would get the home field advantage in the second round. And the Chiefs are way better at home than they are on the road this year. So I think I'm staying away. The Steelers is definitely the sharper side in this game. Like the money will be on the Steelers from the sharp side, and I think
it will.
Like the public will definitely back the Chiefs just because they love betting favorites and they love betting on Patrick Mahomes. I'm not going to bet this game at all, but I think the Chiefs will win the game. They'll need to get some turnovers. Ben Roethlisberger, Grandpa Ben gets his last little playoff game and makes it in the playoffs, which is a good little story for the NFL. But I think this is a game where the Chiefs they take care of business in a professional way. Something to keep an eye on is like that Tyreek Hill injury. If Tyreek Hill is not in the game, that Chiefs offense is not the same. Byron Pringles kind of came on as late as kind of like Mahomes' like secondary option outside of Kelsey. But I think, keep an eye on like Tyreek Hill's practice reports this week and see a lot of times he'll be limited a lot of time in practice and then play a full game. But I think just something to keep an eye on. He hates getting hit, and the Steelers are definitely going to try and hit him. So, it's a concern for the Chiefs because Tyreek Hill is so important to that offense.
There's absolutely no reason to bet this game right now. No matter what side you like, I don't see it's not really close to a key number at 12.5. You're basically thinking about that as covering 14 or covering 13.5 at 12.5 or staying within 2 touchdowns if you like the Steelers. And Tyreek, as you said, that's such a key for both sides of this game that there's no urgency whatsoever to be betting this game on Monday. I do lean toward the Chiefs. If we're going to have a healthy Tyreek and it is still underneath 2 touchdowns, I'm going to bet the Chiefs. They're so much better than the Steelers. And the Steelers, yet again, I mean, look at the game against the Rays. Look at the last win that gets them in. You're not winning. You're not beating the Chiefs like that. You're not scoring 16 points in an overtime game and beating the Chiefs. That's not, if they come with that same performance against the Chiefs, it's gonna they'll score 13 points in regulation. The Chiefs will score 34, and that'll be that. And the Chiefs will waltz into the divisional round. So this has just been it's a great story. It is Mike Tomlin's Sistine Chapel this season with the fact that this team is 9-7-1 and in the playoffs. Just what a great coaching job Mike Tomlin has done this year. What a great job that team, what a great job that defense has done to really carry the load. The offense has come up when they've needed it. Ben Roethlisberger has hit on some big plays. Chase Claypool's made some big plays. Deontay Johnson, Najee Harris, Pat Freiermuth, these guys have made some big plays when they've needed them. So you have to tip your cap to the Steelers that they have gritted their way into the playoffs. But come on, this is not going to be a game. This is not going to be a game. Give me the Chiefs. Give me the under. This is something that, as long as Tyreek Hill is healthy, good to go, and it's Tyreek, I think the Chiefs win this one going away. Last game, Monday Night Football, Rams and Cardinals. This is just the ultimate stay away for me. I will not be betting on this game. I just don't trust either team. I don't trust either team at all. I mean, these teams lost. Both these teams lost on Sunday. The Cardinals lost to the Seahawks. The Cardinals just have been a cratering team since Thanksgiving. This is just, I don't see how you trust them. And the Rams, what the hell? What's going on? How do you get up 17-0 in that game against the Niners at home, 2 seed right there in front of you, and then let it get away? I mean, I know the 49ers are not some pushover of a team, but come on. If you are who you think you are and you're the Rams, you have to win that game. You get both in the 17-0 spot and then in the 24-17 spot. One stop Rams defense, and that's it. And you're the 2 seed. You win, and it's bad. It's a bad look going into the playoffs, and especially when we're supposed to think that this defense with Aaron Donald up front and Jalen Ramsey in the back is supposed to be this dynamic duo that anchors them at both spots. You got to do better. You just have to do better, and they didn't. They flat out didn't. I just don't trust either of these teams. I'm probably just going to be staying away from this game.
Yeah, and one thing I didn't understand about that game was why were the Rams trying to run the ball in the second half when they're up so much? Their plus EV is when they're throwing the ball and throwing to Cooper Kupp and throwing it to Van Jefferson. There's so many
McVay's got this sneaky conservatism about him.
Right.
He always has, and he's got this boy genius wonderkind reputation, but he's always had he is not Brandon Staley. He is not the aggressive guy that we all want him to be and believe him to be. And I think that came back to bite them against the Niners.
And it didn't end up matter. And I mean, the coaches know what the score. The seeding did matter, but the coaches know what the score is of the other game. They'll never admit it, but there's no way the offensive coordinator isn't looking on his phone hey, what's the score in Arizona?
Yeah.
Here's where we're at.
Yeah, right.
When the
Hey,
Seahawks
Rashad
went
Penny
up
just
big,
ripped off a big touchdown run. We're going to win the division.
Yeah, we got this under control. Like, I one thing I will say about the Cardinals, like Rodney Hudson, they're all pro center. Like he's been banged up in the last half of the season.
Mm-hmm.
He played the last couple of weeks. They've looked better with him better. Like, and Kyler had over 200 yards rushing yesterday. So that's like a good sign that his ankle's starting to feel a lot better. If I'm leaning one side, I really kind of want to bet the Cardinals, but I also
Me too.
like
I'll take the points when I don't trust either team, and I trust the talent level, but I don't trust the execution. I'll take the points, but it's probably one I'm just going to stay away from. Maybe the under, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I do like the Cardinals +4, and I'm going to keep an eye on this spread and see what happens. But I think I kind of like the Cardinals because like the Rams, from a psychological point of view, like the superstars just don't seem like they're playing for each other. There's so many superstars on that team right now, but this team doesn't feel like they're playing to win a Super Bowl. They feel like they're playing for themselves. They feel like they're playing for the glitz and glam of Los Angeles. Like they just don't feel like they're not showing up for each other. That's what I'm kind of getting at. Is like
they don't care about Matthew Stafford's Hall of Fame credentials.
They don't. And this team has talent all over the board, but like the last few weeks, the Rams have just been all over the place. And it's been weird. Like they just had so many weird games since they've made that big trade for Von Miller. It's like, did this team just think they're going to waltz through the playoffs? Like they think they're just that much better than the Cardinals? Like I just don't know what team's going to show up. And then like I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about the Rams in the Super Bowl in 2 or 3 weeks either. So
that's my point. Like they could totally just snap it all together and beat the Cardinals and then upset the Packers. I think the Packers are winning the Super Bowl, but upset the Packers, knock off the Cowboys, and here they are in the Super Bowl at home.
Yeah, none of that would shock me at all. But I think I'm gonna make this for the record. I'll make a Cardinals +4 bet right now. Just
all right, beautiful.
Just because I think they're gonna show up. I think they're getting healthier. I think their defense will make some plays and frustrate Stafford, because we've seen that happen. We've seen them get frustrated in the last couple of weeks. So
we have, and it's like he threw that long pick yesterday when it was tied. Stafford did, and it seems like he gets it. He like when things start falling apart, it's like he tries to throw like a 10.5 point touchdown pass, and just like. That could be something that ends up biting the Rams as we go through these playoffs, or even as recently as this week. But it's right now I just don't want to touch it, and I would lean toward the Cardinals. But right now I have no feel for either of these teams, and neither of them laying an egg would surprise me at any point in the playoffs.
Is that why McVay keeps rushing the ball? Is because he's afraid that Stafford's going to throw that pick that like turns the momentum of the game? So it's safer to run the ball on 1st and 2nd down and then throw to Higbee or Kupp on 3rd down and try and like move the chains and then just eat up some clock so that he's afraid that he's going to make that. He doesn't want to go for the dagger. Like they never go for the dagger.
I think if you're the Rams, you gotta like throw it to Cooper Kupp 12 times every game. And I think like if there's a hidden weapon for the Rams, it's got to be OBJ, right?
Right.
I mean, even if they can get like 80% of the Giants OBJ going, then I think that offense could look a lot differently. But they haven't been able to do that with any consistency this season. And that really sums up both of these teams. Is the things that they've done well, they haven't been able to do well consistently. And that's why we're talking about this as a 4-5 game rather than one of them being the 1 seed and the other one being a 5 seed favorite on the road.
Right. And this is why both these teams had the opportunity to be the 2 seed and avoid like a really.
I mean, that like says everything you need to know about. Like 3 weeks ago, it seemed like a guarantee that one of these teams, that the winner of this division was the 2 seed. And now we're talking about this as a 4-5 game and one of them going home.
Right.
And like that to me, if I was going to sum up this game in one sentence, that's it. And like that's why, as we sit here on Monday morning, it's one that I don't want to play just yet. But if we can maybe get this to Cardinals 4.5, Cardinals 5, then I might be a little bit more interested in the Cardinals. But again, that's why we're going to be checking in on these games every single episode of Best on the Board this week. We do have to call it an episode here today. Thank you so much for joining us. For Ari Wasserman, Dan Santaramita a little earlier, enjoy that Georgia-Alabama game, and everyone. And for DeWitt right here, I am Michael Beller. We say goodbye. We say good luck. We say happy betting, and we'll talk to you soon. See ya.